All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Summer Path to Wellness program. If you missed either of the first two sessions or the spring sessions, you can find them on our YouTube page. As always, we're recording tonight's event as well, so you can revisit it. I'm sure that I will be doing that. As most of you know by now, we're still open. We're still here, supporting breast cancer survivors and their families. We're doing everything virtually, individual counseling, group counseling, helping women find low and no cost mammograms, and of course our volunteer hotlines. Excuse me, our hotline volunteers are still talking to people with concerns about breast cancer. So a few housekeeping notes. Please remember to mute your microphone, and you can choose whether or not you want to keep your video going. Take a minute. Oh, no, this is from another thing. We'll have a bit of time at the end to ask questions, which you can do through the chat box, or if we're a really small group, you can just go ahead and do that by unmuting your mic. I'm really excited to welcome Jennifer Velasquez. Velasquez.
You got it, yeah.
Close. Okay. Tonight to lead us in some self-care and positive mantras. If you attended our spring session of self-care Path to Wellness, you saw Jen's self-care from home form, because I personally use it and asked Jen if I could share it with all of you. She creates amazing, empowering self-care and affirmation pieces to help people focus on themselves. And as the self-identified self-care enforcer to everyone I meet, I personally rely on Jen's tools to focus on my own self-care for myself at home and at work. So I appreciate you being here, and take it away.
Erin, that's such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be a part of this Path to Wellness series. And I know that we have, since it's a small group, I'm so excited to have Joanne, Samantha, and Ada. And as Erin said, feel free to chat. Like, I'm going to be asking questions. We're going to do a meditation together. So if you want to unmute yourselves at any point, please feel free to do that. Self-care is so personal. So it's best when these conversations take place in small groups. So this is perfect. And this conversation couldn't be happening at a better time. It is, Erin and I were just discussing that it's the end of August. I think we are 6 months into this pandemic, and a lot of us are experiencing COVID-19 news fatigue. We're experiencing bad news fatigue, and that's manifesting itself in carelessness for some, where they're ditching some of the safety precautions that they were exercising at the beginning, and for others, it's showing up as anxiety and stress. So Erin, you had that self-care workshop back in the spring, right?
Yeah.
So a few months later, our self-care protocols probably have changed.
Yes.
So it's time to revisit those plans. And if we don't have a self-care action plan together, we're going to create one. And as Erin mentioned, back in April, she shared a worksheet I had created. Well, I created a custom one for you today. And we'll touch on it and we'll go through it and fill it out. So that'll be fun. And I'm sorry, I have a little bit of a cough. I am healthy. It's just a cough. I think it's allergies. So I want to start off by defining the term self-care because it is out there in the zeitgeist. I checked Instagram just yesterday for the hashtag, and it was mentioned 33 million times.
Wow.
And Instagram hasn't been around for that long. So it's really out there. And it's something that I've spent a lot of time studying and working on. And the definition that I've come up with is that self-care is the act of taking time to listen to your body and your mind so you can hear what they need and then actually meeting those needs. So very simple. So there's two parts to that, right? The first one is to practice effective self-care is to take time to listen to your body and to be mindful of your thoughts. So now, I want you to think through your planner, like your to-dos for this week. And give me a rough number of how many Zoom Hangouts, meetings, phone calls you have scheduled for this week in August. So just think through it really quickly and then write in a number.
Can you say that again?
So how many Zoom hangouts, phone calls, meetings you have scheduled this week? So from Erin, we're getting, she has 7. Wow, okay. 3. Anyone else? Samantha said she has 3. Oh, Joanne said she has too much to count. Yep. We have a busy group here, okay? Okay, and it's Wednesday today. How many check-ins have you had with yourself so far this week? And be honest.
You mean check-ins in terms of mentally or physically?
Yeah, just time that you sat with yourself and kind of just checked in.
Okay.
No distractions.
Oh, no distractions.
Oh yeah, just a check-in. You know, you show up for those Zoom meetings and you don't usually have other stuff happening in the background. You're focused on that meeting and the people that are there. How many times have you done that with yourself? Edith's checking in daily. Erin, twice. Okay, I think that's really great for this group, honestly. When I talk to other people, this is a great group, and I think that we can attribute this to Erin, who is the self-care police and has been telling everyone to check in with themselves. So I love that, because that means that we're kind of starting off from a similar kind of starting point, basically. And as a society, we don't normalize these check-ins. We're so driven by productivity, especially in the West. And in many cases, when we do, somebody want to jump in?
Nope. Go ahead.
And in many contexts, when we do discuss self-care, it's with the end goal of being more productive. It's like a hack, right? So we can do more. And then in other cases, like the Instagram case, when we hear self-care, it's usually to market and sell us a product. And I've seen everything from self-care nail polishes, smoothie mixes. It's out there. So the word has gotten a little bit convoluted, but at its essence, it's taking care of the human that you're responsible for. You inhabit this body and you need to take care of it. So the first step in our self-care action plan, going back to that definition, is check in with yourself daily for a few minutes without distractions. And if this isn't a habit that you have, it's something that sometimes you just turn to when you're really stressed out, you do it. We want to make this a regular part of a routine. And the way to establish new habits effectively is to anchor them to an existing habit that you have. So for example, I would say a check-in can be as simple as, while you're drinking your coffee or tea or your smoothie in the morning, you sit down, enjoy your beverage, and do it without any distractions. And you notice the thoughts that are coming and going through your head. And you kind of sit back and take a passive role. You don't have to engage with any of those thoughts. You just notice them. And you'll notice also that when you're sitting in stillness, you'll start actually hearing what your body is telling you. You might feel like you have to readjust yourself, like, oh, I was actually really uncomfortable in that position, but I didn't realize that because I was scrolling on my phone the whole time. So once you do that for a few minutes, kind of step back into yourself and say, hey, what is my body telling me that it needs? What is my mind telling me that it needs today? And then meet those needs. So for example, if I'm sitting there and I just have a lot of thoughts going back and forth and I'm really squirmy, so I might have some anxious energy pent up in my body. And a self-care action I can take might be a little bit of movement just to release that anxious energy, and I can go about my day. Or as I'm doing it, I can't keep my eyes open because I'm so exhausted. So a self-care task could be, let me look through my day, move one of my to-dos into tomorrow so I can get into bed an hour earlier. Like, that's as simple as it is. It doesn't require expensive products. It just requires knowing yourself so that you can then provide for your body and mind. So it's really easy. And this can't happen. You can't take care of yourself if you don't listen to yourself. So I want us to do that right now. We're going to sit in stillness and just practice this exercise. I recommend usually 5 minutes, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a really long time to just be sitting in stillness. We're only going to check in for a minute. We're going to sit, we're going to close our eyes. We don't have to do anything special with our breathing. Just breathe normally and kind of see where your mind goes when you're sitting in stillness. We're going to start let's start now. Okay. Okay. Open your eyes slowly. And if you feel comfortable sharing, or to yourself, like what thoughts came up? Or was it to-dos? You don't have to share this honestly, because it can get really private. It could be stress, it could be worries, but just notice it. Was it a lot of thoughts? Did your mind go blank? Did you just have to adjust your body because something felt uncomfortable? Or you hyper aware of your breathing? So this is something, just a little taste of what that would look like. And we would want to be doing this ideally every day. Did anyone feel uncomfortable or anything come up that they wanted to share with others? I became really aware of my throat and how much I was holding back my coughs earlier. So, when I was talking, I just talk. But when I stopped, I realized, oh, I do have that tickle in my throat. It's really there. So now I'm going to do something about it. I think after this, I'm going to make some ginger tea. Samantha said that she started thinking about my to-do list and how tight my shoulders were. Yeah.
I also had my to-do list going.
Oh,
and sort of realizing oh gosh, I should have stretched after I worked out, like one of those, another thing that's good for self-care.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's so simple, right? But so powerful. So we're checking in with ourselves. We are listening to what our body needs. We're listening to what our mind needs. And the next step is to do the things that your body's telling you to do. And what that looks like, it's very different what that will look like for you, basically. I know some people mentioned in your class here and that they loved, you were baking a lot. I was baking a lot too. People like to dance, go back to comforting TV shows and rewatch them, puzzles. So what those activities will be varies for everyone, but there are some baseline activities that humans universally need, and that is enough rest. So we're making sure we're hitting these baseline activities: enough rest, proper nutrition, movement of some sort, stretches, whatever that looks like for you, exercise, hydration, drinking enough water, and small breaks. You can't just be go, go, go all the time. So these are our baseline activities. And moving past that, we were talking about baking and all that. Whatever self-care whatever it is, it's up to you what that will be. But I just want you to remember that self-care is not treat yourself. You heard treat yourself from Parks and Rec. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. And it's not a reward. It's not a reward. And I don't like that line of thinking, because it could potentially get us to a place where we believe that we're not deserving of self-care. when we're always worthy of it, because we're humans and we need to take care of ourselves to function. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate or a shareable experience. It's as simple as it leaves you better than where you started. That's it. And I say simple, but I'm very aware that when you're really tired, when you're very depleted or burnt out, we have less energy to do things that will make us feel better. And I know this very well because I have chronic migraines. They're much better now, but back in my early 20s, they were truly terrible. And it took so much energy to start taking care of myself. And I think that some of you might possibly be able to relate that when you're physically ill, it takes so much work to take care of like all the mental health struggles that come with that physical illness. And add to that a global pandemic, what's happening in the news. I just want you to be very patient with yourself and know that the hardest part is in the beginning. But as you gain momentum and you overcome that initial inertia, taking care of yourself will get easier, just because that's how habits work, but also because now you're taking care of yourself. So you have more energy and motivation to do it. And I think that most of us like to do things on our own. We want to take that on, but also in the beginning especially, don't be afraid to turn to your support system. There were days when I was really sick that I couldn't get out of bed and shower. I was too sick to prepare my own meals. And it was really hard to ask my partner and my mother for help, but I had to lean on them. And it was fine because the people that love you will understand. So in the beginning, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. So I want us to think about what our self-care looked like at the beginning of the pandemic back in April. So what were some of the things that you were doing then? I was doing a lot of baking for myself. I was baking a lot. I think I was making cookies and cakes almost every single day. And before we finished yesterday, like the cakes from the day before, I was baking cookies. So that was my thing. Anybody else, like the beginning of the pandemic, go to self-care?
I was using my stationary bike much more.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was using it like maybe twice a week. Then since the pandemic, I was using it every 2 days because I was sitting so much on the computer with the remote teaching.
Yes.
And then I had this treadmill that was standing upright for so many years, and we finally put it down, and I started using the treadmill again. So
Oh, wow. So you really turned to physical movement to take care of yourself.
Yeah, because I got concerned. Yeah, exactly. I got concerned because I felt like I was sitting so much.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then you're also getting those endorphins from it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Their go-to self-care at the beginning of the pandemic?
Looks like Samantha said she was going on a lot of walks.
I went for a lot of walks.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I was also doing a ton of baking, like same. It would be like 8 o'clock at night, like, maybe we should have brownies.
10 p.m. I'd start cakes, and I had never baked before. It's so true.
Yes, absolutely.
So
now
true.
I have more baking tools than anything.
I know. Same. Anyone else?
So Aida here says Zoom support groups and Strength for Life Zoom exercise classes.
Oh, great. Okay. Fantastic. And now I want you to think about how your self-care has changed. So what did you stop doing? It is end of August already. September is just a few days away. So how has your self-care changed during the pandemic, if at all? I'm just curious.
I'm definitely baking less than I was and exercising more.
Oh,
so that's good.
that's
So I
great.
made a little shift there.
Fantastic. Okay.
I've been still exercising pretty much the same. However, I started cooking more again.
Oh, there it is. Very nice.
Making new dishes. So that's a lot of fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so Samantha said that with the heat, I've been staying inside more and have been trying to do more yoga. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that everyone here is kind of listening, kind of following the flows and the seasons of like what they need. I stopped baking altogether and ended up spending a lot more time in nature. That really helped me get through. And I want to touch on that. I know that everyone's self-care looks different, but a lot of research has come out on spending time in nature and in green places. And I think that now, as the weather starts to cool down and the leaves start changing, if you're in the Northeast, this is a great time to get out there. In Japanese culture, there's something called forest bathing, and they've done studies on that, and it says that it helps lower cortisol levels, stress levels. And here in the West, I'm sorry?
Well,
And
what did you say? Japanese what?
in Japanese culture, there's something called forest bathing, which is just, it means spending time in the woods
Oh,
and
okay.
doing it mindfully. And they say that being surrounded by green lowers your cortisol levels. So if you haven't already, getting out there, maybe taking a little trip to your local park, Astoria Park, Forest Park, or heading upstate for a weekend, that can really, I mean, the research is out there and it helps us. And there's something else that I found that was very cool, which is called grounding. And that is putting your feet on earth, letting your feet touch the earth. So grass, sand, letting your hands touch the earth. And when they did studies, they found that it lowers inflammation. It helps lower chronic pain. It helps with muscle recovery. I know a few of you have been working out a lot more, yoga, cycling, walks. Um, uh, and it improves overall mood, obviously, because you're out in nature. It's so good. So that's something that I recommend you start doing. Okay, so to summarize our self-care action plan so far, we have daily distraction-free check-ins, right? What are my body and mind telling me that I need? Am I meeting those baseline needs that all humans require? Proper nutrition, hydration, rest, movement. And then in what other ways can I take care of my emotional and mental needs? So does anyone have any questions up to this point? It's pretty, I think we kind of all are familiar with this a little bit, but any questions?
Well, also, in the beginning, when we really couldn't go out, my husband and I, we would take a ride to the park and just sit and look at the boats, look at the docks and the boats.
Yeah.
And I find water very soothing.
Yes.
As soon as I see water, I'm like melting, I just love it. And now the park is open, so we're actually able to go out and sit by the boats, and we invited friends to sit by the boats. And my husband and I go to the dog park a lot. This is all in one park, so it's helped me a lot.
I'm so glad that you found what works for you. And I think that, I mean, we don't spend enough time in nature. And so we kind of forget how good it is for us. And then there's also like the push and pull because we want to stay safe, we want to stay home. But I think that there is a way of getting out there by the water, in the woods, and doing it safely. And there's a lot of places where you just won't see another person around, especially if you get out of the city. So something to think about, but I'm so glad you found that, Joanne.
Thank you.
So I do want to go back into those daily check-ins because I want to prepare you. There's two things that are going to come up that you might notice that I found when I started doing this exercise. And the first thing was that it got really dark in here. Even though it was 5 minutes, I had some dark thoughts, and that's totally normal. So I'm just letting you know now that if those thoughts get dark, it's totally normal because humans have, it's our brain's way of survival to dwell on negative thoughts. And we tend to dwell on negative thoughts and emotions, and we draw those negative experiences more readily. So that's our brain's way of keeping us safe. So good job, brain, I guess. But it's not so fun. So just know that that might come up while you're doing this exercise. And the second thing is that you might have thoughts, so many thoughts, 5 minutes, but you could have like 300 thoughts going back and forth. And that's totally part of the human experience as well. There was a study that came out earlier this year from, I think it was Queen's University in Ontario, and they found that humans have about 6,200 thoughts in a day. 6,200 thoughts in one day. And we know that the way the brain works is that we tend to dwell on negative thoughts. So that's a lot of negative thoughts happening. So I don't want to deter you from doing your daily check-ins, but here are some strategies to kind of help you prepare for that when you start doing it daily. Number one is that just knowing about this tendency is good enough because you won't judge yourself, hopefully not. So if after you're drinking your coffee and you're washing your mug, you're like, wow, that really went somewhere that I didn't expect it. Just know that's part of the human experience. Everyone else is like thinking the same way. There's nothing wrong with you. Number two is that knowing that we have this tendency, now we can be really conscious about elevating positive thoughts. And what I mean by that is don't engage. Those negative thoughts will come and go. You can control your thoughts, but maybe don't necessarily jump on that train and then go off with it. Just let it pass. Don't engage with it. And when you do have a positive thought, elevate that. Moments of gratitude. Thinking about wins, thinking about the people that you love. Stay there for a while longer. And then the other strategy I have is that now that you're cognizant of the internal monologue that's running through your head all day, if you realize that it's not one that's empowering or uplifting, or if it's overly critical, you can do something about that. And I found that positive affirmations is really helpful in this space. So has anyone used a positive affirmation or a mantra before? Erin has. Ida hasn't used a positive affirmation or mantra. Okay, Samantha hasn't either. Joanne, have you used a positive affirmation before? Okay, Joanne's at the dog park. She is having a blast watching her doggos. She'll check back in with us.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, you have? Okay, great. Okay. So just since there are a few people that haven't used an affirmation before. So an affirmation is simply a positive statement that describes a goal in its completed state. So basically what that means is an example in affirmation would be, I set healthy boundaries. I set healthy boundaries. Now, that might not reflect my current reality. I might actually be really bad at setting boundaries. I might let people trample all over my boundaries. But the point of an affirmation is that our brain is really funny. When you tell yourself something enough, your brain believes it is truth. So sometimes you might be watching a scary movie and actually get scared and have a reaction. Your brain will have a reaction. Your cortisol levels will go up, even though you know that it's not real. But your brain takes in information literally. It doesn't have time to figure out all that. It will just have a reaction right away because those few seconds in a real life dangerous situation will save you. So that's just how it works. So now we have to be super mindful of what kind of stories we're telling ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, because as we know, our brain will receive it as face value. So there are some people that have some really negative stories and ideas about themselves, and they're not rooted in reality. It's just a story that they've told themselves over the years. And so after hearing it enough times, their brains said, okay, that's who we are. We are not confident. We don't trust ourselves. We're bad at managing money, whatever it is whatever story you're telling yourself. So you're doing these check-ins, and if you realize that these are some of those stories, here's an opportunity to use an affirmation to change that story. And in the beginning, I'm going to tell you, it's going to feel uncomfortable, and it might feel like a little silly because you might say, I am I trust myself and I make decisions with confidence. And you say that over and over again. A part of you will question it and say, hey, for a long time, I've been telling myself that I'm really bad at making decisions. But that's okay. Just repeating that statement is all you need to do. And if you do it long enough, your brain will start believing that that's who you are. And you'll realize that your actions will start reflecting those new beliefs. So it's really cool because it's so simple. It just takes kind of effort on our part to start building this new habit. So I also want to mention this because I know there are some people that are new to affirmations. Affirmations are not us being inauthentic with ourselves or lying to ourselves. It's about being real with yourself and asking, what do I need to hear today? And then telling yourself that thing. Maybe you're facing a new challenge. You know, this is the first time that I've taught a workshop on Zoom. And so what I needed to hear was, I am prepared to face any challenge. Everything I need is within me. And I said that every day for the last week, leading up to today. And I said it right before this workshop. So affirm and repeat what you need. I would love to hear, for the people that have used affirmations, what are some of your go-to? What are some of your favorite ones? And maybe those that haven't can kind of borrow them. Erin, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was just reading Joanne's and she says, you are doing a great job.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that.
Oh.
And Joanne, I might even say,
Oh, I meant this was for you, that you're doing a great job, because you said this is the first time you're doing it on Zoom.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were telling yourself that. Oh, thank you so much, Joanne.
I should tell myself that, but I don't.
You should. Well, I was actually going to say, if that's your affirmation, I would start, instead of saying you are doing a great job, affirmations should always be I am, and try to say it in the present tense. I am doing a great job. Okay.
I like that a lot. I'm going to say that to myself. I like that a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I won't say it to you. I'll say it to myself. I take
there
that
it is.
back,
You take that.
Only kidding.
I like that one. Okay, I'm doing a great job. Anyone else?
I know for myself, a lot of the positive affirmations I do are about exercise. Like I love to exercise, but sometimes the getting to get there is hard. And so even just saying, I love to do this, it makes me feel good.
Yes.
Exercise makes me feel good. And just sort of reminding myself of that.
That's right. And it's the ones that we need the most that we obviously have the most resistance to. I feel the same way about exercise. It's so hard for me to get there, but I'll say it. I love moving my body. Yeah. It makes me feel great. It makes me a better person, a better artist, you know? Yeah. So I know that there's some people that aren't familiar with affirmations. So I have a deck that I created, and I'm going to pull 3 cards for us today at random. And if you think that those cards can serve you, I would say just take a snapshot of your phone screen or write them down for yourself, and you can use them whenever. They're yours. We'll do a quick little shuffle and see what we come up with today. Okay. Okay, we've got some good ones. So affirmations that you can potentially use. This one came up for me. Can you see it, or is my screen mirrored?
That's perfect.
I am whole. I am whole. This was a really useful affirmation for me when I was going through the toughest part of my migraine journey, because I felt so broken and so defined by my physical illness that I just needed this reminder. I am whole. Okay. We also have, I find love everywhere I go. It is all around me. Okay, so if that serves you, take a screenshot. The challenges I've overcome have made me stronger and more compassionate. So wherever you are in your journey, personal health journey, challenges I've overcome have made me more compassionate. Okay. So I'll put this one up again in case you want to take a screenshot of it. And I find love everywhere I go. It is all around. Okay. So this is a lifelong process. You know, I started using affirmations maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I still do them because I've had a whole lifetime of being really mean to myself. And it takes a lot of work to undo some of the beliefs I've built up. And then as things come up in the world, it'll trigger old emotions and insecurities. And I'll have to go back to something that I thought I had figured out and kind of start all over again. So just be patient with yourself. And like I said earlier about our daily check-ins, affirmations, if you do want to start a practice, anchor them to an existing habit. And when I say anchor, I mean that while you're brushing your teeth, that's something that you do every day. Practice your affirmations mentally as you're brushing your teeth. While you're washing the dishes, that can be your time for affirmations. And that makes it easier with any habit for us to stick with it because we're attaching it to something that we do constantly, don't even have to think about. Any questions about affirmations or mantras? Okay. I can't believe it's 6:40 already. Joanne, thank you. Yeah, I'm telling you, I've been doing this for years, and it's really nice. And also, if you don't need a fancy affirmation deck, you can write it on Post-its, which is how I started. I would write messages on Post-its and leave them around my workspace so that every time I looked up away from my computer, that's the thing I would see and I would read. You can leave them on your mirror. And it's nice because if there's other people sharing your space, they'll see it too, and they can kind of engage in that practice. It's nice to set these habits when you have a partner. You'll stick with them hopefully a little bit longer.
One thing too that I've recommended is if you write it down and put it in your pocket.
Ooh.
Because then you sort of get that tactile too, like you feel it and like, what's that in my pocket? Oh, right. It's my affirmation or my positive mantra.
Absolutely. I really like that. I had, and you could do this with so many things. Like I remember that before I started my small business, I used to do I was a financial advisor, but back then I was still doing these affirmations. I had come into this world. And I remember that my client and she was having an issue with overspending, and we put an affirmation right in her wallet so that every time she opened it, she would see that affirmation and kind of think twice. So yeah, wherever like there's areas, the space that you exercise, you can leave your affirmations. When you get ready, if you have some negative self-talk about your appearance, leave that affirmation there. I am beautiful. I am confident. I radiate confidence. I love myself. So you know those areas that you need to work on, and there's so many affirmations online. You can just Google them and take and borrow what will help you in the moment. So one last thing that I'll leave you with in terms of self-care that I think might be really useful right now, especially because there's states that are burning down, the environment, there's just so much happening right now. So I think it might be a fun idea to create a feel-good folder. And this is something that I've kept over the years. And a feel-good folder, you'll probably find ideas online, but it can be a physical or a digital folder on your computer. And it's just a space where you keep things that uplift you. So notes from friends, pictures that bring you back, like bring you the happiest memories, printouts of messages that people have left you, affirmations that uplift you. I actually have mine here. I wanted to show you because it's real. I do keep one. This is an old folder that I bought at Michael's years ago. And in it, it's just stuffed with notes and pictures. Let's see. Ada, if you want to be more patient or calm when things don't go the way you want, would a good mantra be, I have patience, or I can be more patient, be more in touch with my patients? Yeah, so if you want to be more patient, you can say, yeah, I am patient. I would say something as simple as this: the easier it is and the shorter it is, the better it is for our brain. Like, our brain likes to receive information really quickly. So just say, I am patient. Or you could do a little bit longer based on, I trust the timing of things. But simple is usually best. I love that, Ada. Yeah, I love that too. So yeah, so a feel-good folder. That's another idea for self-care. When you're having a really tough day, when you're not feeling well physically or mentally, you just open this up and it'll take you to your happiest place. So I think that's it for our chat, which is, I can't believe that went by so quickly. I do want to say that self-care might seem a little bit indulgent. For some people, I think it's also because of the way it's presented out there, like in the zeitgeist, it's used to sell all these crazy spa retreats and makeup and all these things. But self-care is critical. And if we can't have compassion with ourselves, then we have less empathy for other people. And now more than ever, we need caring, empathetic people in this world. So self-care has never been more important. I am here for you. I know that our session will be over soon, but if you want to email me, if you have questions about this topic, I'm really passionate about it. I come from it from a place of chronic illness. So I like practical, easy, nothing fancy or elaborate. And so if that matches your style, just feel free to connect with me.
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Erin. I would love to open it up if anyone has any comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, comments or thoughts.
Well, I think you had a lot of good ideas, and I'm going to try to enact on these ideas. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Oh, and I forgot, I mentioned it at the beginning, but I'm going to be, well, I won't be, Erin will be emailing the participants a self-care action plan, which touches on everything we discussed today: the daily check-ins, meeting those baseline needs, how we're actually going to provide for ourselves mentally and emotionally. Just a little checklist that you can go through that takes 5 minutes, and it'll be worth it.
I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard it from some wonderful person. Always carry some healthy thoughts around with you in your pocket. Now, you don't have to physically have that thing that you showed, which was, I thought was hysterical, but just say, like, if you're thinking an unhealthy thought, say, okay, what healthy thought can I know I got some, and always try to have some go-to healthy thought that could help you. I've never really used it, but I think it's a great idea, and
Yes.
I think it's good to have.
I love that. I love that. I think that's a great idea. And then also remember that if you do have an unhealthy thought, you just say, oh, Jen is thinking today. She's just thinking. You don't have to necessarily police all your thoughts, because like we said, humans have a lot of negative thoughts. And just realize, okay, I'm thinking. Good job, brain,
Yes.
That's great.
Anyone else?
No, I like everything that you mentioned, because I'm definitely my worst critic sometimes. So yeah.
I hear you.
Posting the positive mantras on the mirror might not be such a bad idea. But yeah.
We're so mean to ourselves sometimes. And we hear it all the time that we would never talk to a loved one that way, but we do it so naturally. We're so hard on ourselves. And I don't know if part of it is this idea that hopefully that kind of tough love will make us better, but it just makes it harder.
Jen, would it be okay if I screen share the thing that you created for us, just so that when people are watching it on YouTube,
Yes.
they can see it?
Do you want me to? Yeah, you do it.
I think I can do it. Then you can
Yes.
answer other questions.
Yeah.
Now, Jen, do you like do different mantras every day, or?
Yeah. So I have my go-tos. I created an affirmation deck, and I'm really familiar with it, so I know what I might need. I'll pull up a card and I'll repeat it. And if there's something that isn't in here, I just come up with it on the spot. But I really like to, for example, like this workshop, I was nervous and scared about doing it. It's my first time. I have that affirmation in my deck, and I just did the same one for an entire week. And there are some months where I'm repeating the same thing over and over again, because I just need to hear it. So like, again, you'll know based on that daily check-in what you need to hear that day. And it might be the same thing that you were saying to yourself yesterday, because our thoughts tend to be so repetitive. We tend to have the same negative thoughts over and over again.
Okay, so you kind of say it to yourself, like what you're feeling that day, like after you check in. Okay. Yeah,
so after I check in, I'm like, okay, I'm really anxious today, or I can't stop thinking about this thing I have tomorrow. And then that's the time that you can do your positive affirmation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I could understand at the beginning of the day, let's say trying to start your day with affirmations. Would it be good at the end of the day to do positive affirmations, maybe that you've experienced that day, to reinforce it? Or no, you don't need to reinforce what you've already done positive. You want to focus on what you want to change or be more comfortable with?
No, I think that like giving yourself that pat on the back and kind of reflecting on the good is a great way to end the day. Absolutely. I like that, Ada.
Okay, cool.
So if you started off your day with an affirmation, let's see, I find love surrounds me. I find love everywhere I go. And then you kind of reflect on your day at the end of the day. Like, you can think about that moment where you found love, when a neighbor held the door for you, or your partner, prepared dinner or washed the dishes or did something nice. Who knows? I like that, reinforcing it, because it's telling your brain, like, see, here's evidence of finding love.
Can everybody see the self-care action plan now?
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
good. Awesome.
So in the beginning, we have thoughts and feelings that came up during my check-in, because that's the first thing that we're doing, right? I fed my soul by, that is just the self-care activity of choice for you. So what did you do that day? I looked after my health by, what did you do for your health? Positive affirmation for the day. This could be the same one for a week, or it could change daily based on what came up during that check-in again. Something I'm grateful for, which is kind of to Ada's point. And then at the bottom is that quick scan of like the baseline self-care activity, those points that we want to be kind of checking off a few times a week at least.
Great.
Which is movement, drinking water, rest, all that.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this.
Thank you, Erin.
With everyone. I just really love this, and I know there are things that I'm going to practice too. I think the positive affirmations are so important, and it's such a good habit to get into, like a positive, good habit to get into.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to connect with me, I am the Salvaged Sawhorse on Instagram, and you can follow kind of new products I'm working on, self-care ideas, adventures upstate, where I'm moving to eventually. So you can look at that. Yeah. Follow me there.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put the evaluation as well, the link. Everyone gets an email follow-up about it, but I'm putting it in the chat.
Thank you, Ada.
Because it's so important that, I can let the speakers know how well they've done. So I put that there, and then you'll also get an email evaluation as well.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Jen. All right. I'm going to stop recording.